In this Ellerton Associates Technology Training Tip of the Month, I'll be showing you how to use the formula auditing tools in Excel 2010 or 2013. I'm going to switch over to Excel, and what we're talking about is on the Formulas tab. In the Formula Auditing group, we have several tools. The idea here is that when you want to see what a formula is doing, maybe you've just inherited this worksheet so you didn't create the formulas yourself and you're trying to figure out how they work. Maybe you did create the formulas, you suspect the answer is wrong and you're not sure why, and you want some tools to help you figure out what's going on with the formula. Or maybe there's really an error message like this. Now, even when Excel gives you an error message like that, Excel will not tell you exactly what's wrong in your exact formula. It'll give you a general idea of the type of error, but it never says, hey, this is the wrong cell, change that. The most Excel will do with a formula is if you miss one of a pair of parentheses and it can see that, it may offer to add that parenthesis for you. But basically, if there's problems with formulas, it's up to you to figure out what they are. Excel's not going to help you, though if it really can't perform the calculation, it will at least pop up an error message saying that. So I can click on a cell and look at the formula in the formula bar. I can double click the cell to pop it up in the cell itself. But all I'm really seeing there is that this formula is the sum of B6 through D6. I am not seeing from that if the cells B6 through D6 are themselves just values or other calculations. So if I want to know if this calculation is derived from previous calculations, perhaps going back in a chain of 4 or 5 different calculations that lead to this result, what I'm seeing on the screen right now is definitely not showing me that. So what we'll start with, though, is in the Formula Auditing group, there is a Show Formulas button. So instead of having to click on each individual one, I can click Show Formulas. It pops them up in the cells. I can even print this. I'd have to make the bonus amount a little bigger or wrap the text in the cell, but I could print it and it would print just like this, give me a nice record of the formulas in the worksheet, and I can see them all at once. I'll toggle that button again, click it again to turn that off and go back to the formula results. But let's say I want to know, first of all, what this formula does, and I can see that in the formula bar, but also are the cells it refers to themselves formulas, and again, does this go back in a chain of formulas leading to this Q1 result? To see that, I can click the formula and then click Trace Precedence. And the first time I click it, it shows me the first precedence to this formula, cells B6 through D6. It shows that graphically with an arrow from those cells pointing to the formula that uses them. But if I click it again, it goes back another step. So now I see that, yes, indeed, these cells are themselves formulas that refer to those cells. If I click it again, it beeps at me, and that means that's it. So the whole chain up to this Q1 total is first these 3, which themselves are calculated from those 3. And if I needed to, I could go look at them individually to get more help on what's going on with the formula. But I've got what I need. I'm going to click Remove Arrows, and it removes the precedent arrows. Now, I just want to show you something else too. If I go to Q1 Expenses and click this car rental number, and I click Trace Precedence. Now, it's not showing me arrows to any specific cells, but this formula is using numbers on other worksheets, and that's what this symbol means. I can even double click this arrow, and it shows me each reference. I can even click on one and click OK, and it takes me right to it. So that's kind of nice with the 3-dimensional or external references, that it will automatically take you to that reference so you can see what it is. And if I go back to Q1 Expenses, that arrow is still there, and I will remove the arrows. If I go back to Q1 Sales, this might be a way to deal with this error. I could click Trace Precedence, and I can see that it's referring to these 4 numbers and this text. And then if I pay attention to the formula, I can see it's trying to add the text. And in fact, if I go back another step by clicking Trace Precedence, it might cause me suspicion to see that these numbers are derived from these, but here's this one sitting up here. So probably trying to add Q1 is what's causing the error, and that indeed is the case. I'm not going to fix it yet, though. I'm going to remove the arrows. Now, the other thing you might wonder about a value or a formula is it used elsewhere? So this Q1 total, is it referred to by any other formulas? And that is a dependent. So if I click Trace Dependence, I can see, yeah, this Q1 total is used in this bonus amount formula. That might be important. I know if this changes, this will also change. If I click it again, it beeps because that's it. That's the only other place this particular number is used, and I can remove the arrows. But if I click on the January North number and trace its dependence, the first level shows it's used in the Q1 total, the January total, but I click again and those formulas are used in these other formulas, and I click again, and that one's even used here. So basically changing January's North number will result in an update of pretty much everything on this sheet, and that's no doubt true for all of these numbers. And I'll remove the arrows. So again, does that specifically tell me there's an error where it is? No, but it gives me a way to try to dig in and find out that I didn't have otherwise. Now, what if I do have errors? And maybe I suspect there are other errors on this worksheet. Maybe I can't see them because they're off the edges of the screen. I'll click error checking. And what Excel does there is on this worksheet, I'd have to do this individually on each worksheet, it jumps to the first error it finds, and it's going to give me some help on trying to figure out what's going on. Again, it's not just going to say, hey, E1 has text in it, you can't have that. You know, it'd be nice if it did, but it won't. I have to figure that out myself, but it's helping me. It's saying that this particular error is caused by a value of the wrong data type in the formula. Well, if that doesn't help me, I can click help on this error. And it doesn't go straight to it, but it gives me a link to the correct number value error help topic. And here's a nice help topic on what that error might mean and what I can look at to try to fix it. I can read that. I can show the calculation steps. This is a way to see this formula calculated step by step instead of just the end result. Notice it underlined that it's going to try to add, the first thing it's going to try to do is add Q1 to this number. I evaluate that and the error triggers immediately. So now I know that the error is within the first two references, E1 or E2. I might as well not even continue evaluating it. I got the error already. I could ignore the error and move on. Maybe I just truly can't figure it out and I want to see if there are others. I'm not going to do that though. I figured it out. E1 shouldn't be in there. I'm going to edit in the formula bar. It gives me a moment to come up and do that. I'm going to backspace over E1 plus and resume the error check. There are no more errors on this sheet. If there were, it would jump to them and I could do this over and over for each error. But notice I click OK, the error's fixed. I now have a calculation. All right. Now, the other thing is that evaluate formula is pretty nice just by itself, even without an error. For example, this bonus amount formula, it's got an if function overall, it's performing an average in there, it's got some multiplication, and though it is giving me a result, I may question that result, or just want to see the order that things are performed in the formula to know if I did it right or may need to change it. So I'll click evaluate formula, and it'll do that regardless of error. And this is, again, the only way to see a formula calculated step by step instead of just seeing the end result like you see in a cell. So it says, okay, I'm going to average these numbers. That's the first thing it's going to do. It underlines it. And when I evaluate, it presents the result of that in italics. Then it says, okay, I'm going to compare that result and see if it's greater than 60,000. I'll evaluate that. Now it's selecting an individual cell because that cell itself contains a formula. So I could just evaluate it and move on, or I could step in and see what that formula is. So it says, okay, E6 has this sum of B6 through D6. Okay, I'll evaluate that. There's the result. I'll step out and put that into the main formula. Why is it underlining a percent? Because it will convert it to a decimal number, and it did. And now it's going to multiply those two, and then it's going to come up with the result of if, which is the number. So I went through that fairly quickly, of course, for the demonstration, but notice that I could restart it. I could just do it over and over until I'm very clear on what the formula and any other formulas that are being referred to by it do, the order they do them, and the results they're coming up with each step along the way. And that can help me decide if this formula is correct or needs to be revised, or at least help me understand the formula. I'm going to close that. Now, one final thing I'll show you in the formula auditing group is the watch window. If I go back to my expenses, this car rental number, and in fact these other expenses, are all based on numbers from these other 4 worksheets. So if I want to see what happens to car rental, if for example I go to New York and I change its car rental number to 700, well, now I got to go back to Q1 expenses to see that that raised it to 2,000. What if you have a formula where you want to make some changes on other worksheets that it refers to, but keep it in sight while you do so you don't have to keep clicking back to see the result? That's the watch window. So I'm going to have this formula selected. I'm going to click watch window. You can add as many watches as you want. And watches are formulas you're paying attention to as you change values in possibly other worksheets. I'm going to click Add Watch. It's automatically I got the cell I selected highlighted, though I could put whatever I want in there, and I'll click Add. So here's the watch window. The value is currently 2,000. Now watch, if I go to Massachusetts, see it stays on top. So I'm going to change the car rental to 900 and hit Enter, and see this went up to 2,500. I'm going to go to DC, change the car rental number to 1,000, hit Enter. This goes up to 3,200. So the point is I can view the results of the formula without having to keep going back to the sheet the formula is on, and that can be pretty handy when you're doing what-if scenarios. Now I can leave this watch in here and it'll be here in this worksheet next time I look at it. If you're done though and you don't need the watch anymore, you could click it and delete the watch. And again, you can have many in here that you're paying attention to. I'm going to close the watch window. So those are the Excel formula auditing tools. To learn more about our classes, please visit us at www.ellerttraining.com.